UPSC Main File number 23 2012 General Studies Solve Papers Paper 1 Time allowed 3 hours Maximum marks 300 Instructions: Candidates should attempt all questions strictly in accordance with the instructions given under each question. The number of marks carried by each question is indicated at the end of the question. Important: whenever a question is being attempted, all its parts or subparts must be attempted contiguously. This means that before moving on to the next question to be attempted, candidates must finish attempting all parts or subparts of the previous question attempted. This is to be strictly followed. Pages left blank in the answer book are to be clearly struck out in ink. Any answers that follow pages left blank may not be given credit. Question 1. Answer any 5 of the following in about 250 words each. 25 into 5, 125. A. What do you understand by the term innovation? Discuss the need for launching a national innovation policy in India. Answer. Innovation is the development of new values through solutions that meet new requirements, inarticulate needs, or old customer and market needs in value-adding new ways. This is accomplished through more effective products, processes, services, technologies, or ideas that are readily available to markets, governments, and society. India has a long tradition of innovation and a significant pool of qualified people, both within country as well as the diaspora, presently engaged in innovative activities. This talent pool has to be leveraged to drive the innovation agenda. Further, there is also a need to capture the multiple innovations happening in various domains such as government, R&D labs, universities, and across sectors to give an impetus to the innovation process in the country. NIC, National Innovation Council, will act as a platform to facilitate this engagement and collaboration with domain experts, stakeholders, and key participants to create an innovation movement in India. The aim is to herald a mindset change and create a push at the grassroots level so that more and more people in education, business, government, NGOs, urban and rural development engaged in innovative activities are co-opted and are part of shaping the national level innovation strategy. Realizing that innovation is the engine for the growth of prosperity and national competitiveness in the 21st century, the President of India has declared 2010 as the Decade of Innovation. Towards this end, the Prime Minister has approved the setting up of a National Innovation Council (NLNC) under the chairmanship of Mr. Sam Pitroda, advisor to the PM on P3rd, to discuss, analyze and help implement strategies for inclusive innovation in India and prepare a roadmap for innovation 2010 to 2020. NIC would be the first step in creating a cross-cutting system which will provide mutually reinforcing policies, recommendations and methodologies to implement and boost innovation performance in the country. B. Keeping in view the informal sector's share in the total workforce of the country, critically examine the relevant inclusive measures initiated by the Government of India and their effectiveness. Important points for answer. Informal sector in India, various schemes. Answer. Informal sector in India consists of unorganized labor workers in rural and urban area. They constitute nearly 85% of total workforce and contribute to more than 50% of total production. For their welfare, the government has from time to time implemented various inclusive measures. Some of them are Aam Aadmi Bima Yojana, a social security scheme for rural landless household, was launched on 2nd October 2007. The head of the family or one earning member in the family of such a household is covered under the scheme. The premium of Rs 200 per person per annum is shared equally by the central government and the state government. The member to be covered should be aged between 18 and 59 years. The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act aims at enhancing the livelihood security of people in rural areas by guaranteeing 100 days of wage employment in a financial year to a rural household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana (RSBY) has been launched by Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, to provide health insurance coverage for below poverty line BPL families. The objective of RSBY is to provide protection to BPL households from financial liabilities arising out of health shocks that involve hospitalization. Beneficiaries under RSBY are entitled to hospitalization coverage up to Rs 30,000 for most of the diseases that require hospitalization. These welfare schemes have certainly uplifted living standard of unorganized labor and unskilled workers. C. Examine the causes and extent of desertification in India and suggest remedial measures. Important points for answer. What is desertification? Causes, legislative framework, schemes and programs. Answer. Desertification is the degradation of land in any dry land. It is caused by a variety of factors such as climate change and human activities. Desertification is a significant global ecological and environmental problem. Nearly 25% of the country's geographical area is affected by desertification. The Space Application Center in 2007 brought out the Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas, which shows 81.45 million hectare land in the country has turned into arid, semi-arid or dry subhumid region. Desertification is caused by a number of factors including climatic variations and human activities. Some of the human activities that can cause desertification are expansion of agriculture over cultivation of soils, or exposure to erosion by wind or water, reduction in the fallow period of soil and lack of organic or mineral fertilizers, overgrazing often selectively of shrubs, herbs and grasses, overexploitation of forest resources, deforestation, uncontrolled use of fire for regenerating pasture, for hunting, agriculture cleaning or for settling, poor irrigation practices, irrigation of soils prone to salinization, alkalinization or even waterlogging. Policy and legislative frameworks that contribute to combating desertification in India. National Water Policy 1987, National Forest Policy 1988, National Agricultural Policy 2000, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Environment Protection Act 1986, National Environmental Policy 2006, National Policy for Farmers 2007, National Rainfed Area Authority NRAA 2007. Some major schemes or programs that have contributed to desertification control are Drought Prone Areas Program Drought Prone Areas Program DPAP 1973-74, Watershed Development Project in Shifting Cultivation Areas WDPSCA 1974-75, Desert Development Program DDP 1977-78, Reclamation and Development of Alkali Soil RAS 1985-86, Watershed Development Fund WDF, Integrated Wasteland Development Program IWDP 1989, National Watershed Development Project for Rain-Fed Areas NWDPRA 1990-91, Soil Conservation in the Catchment of River Valley Projects RVP 1992, Sustainable Land and Ecosystem Management SLEM Programmatic Approach 2007, Common Guidelines for Watershed Development Program 2008, Integrated Watershed Management Program IWMP, Guidelines for Convergence between NREGA and NAP 2009, National Afforestation Program NAP 2002-3 is also one of the major programs in which Association of Scheduled Tribes and Rural Poor in Regeneration of Degraded Forest ASTRP launched in 1992-93 and Integrated Afforestation and Eco-Development Project Scheme LAEPS 1989-90 were merged in the National Afforestation Program. D. In the context of the growing demands for the ban of endosulfan in the country, critically examine the issues involved. What, in your view, should be done in the matter? Important points for answer. What is endosulfan? Its effects, banning of endosulfan. Answer. Endosulfan is an off-patent organochlorine insecticide and acaricide that is being phased out globally. The two isomers, endo and exo, are known popularly as 1 and 2. Endosulfan became a highly controversial agrichemical due to its acute toxicity, potential for bioaccumulation, and role as an endocrine disruptor. Because of its threats to human health and the environment, a global ban on the manufacture and use of endosulfan was negotiated under the Stockholm Convention in April 2011. The ban was to take effect in mid-2012, with certain uses exempted for 5 additional years. The Supreme Court banned the production and sale of endosulfan in the country. In April 2012, it asked the center to ascertain the quantity of raw material lying with 3 companies, producers of the banned pesticide endosulfan, and the manner in which the raw material could be disposed of. The international conventions and global practices also suggested phasing out. The FAO also recommends disposal of livestock pesticides through phasing out by its judicious use as per good agriculture practices for crop protection purposes. Of the 19 states which participated in the meeting convened by the expert committee, except Kerala and Karnataka, other states were in favor of the continued use of endosulfan for the reasons being broad spectrum, cheaper, most popular among farmers, safe to pollinations, no reports of resistance or resurgence or ill effects on human beings, animals and environment. Thus, states other than Kerala and Karnataka are ready to use endosulfan for agriculture pest control. E. The Indian independence movement was a mass-based movement that encompassed various sections of society. It also underwent the process of constant ideological evolution. Critically examine. Answer. Indian independence movement started from the 1857 uprising of Sipais. The uprising led to nationwide protest against British. Everywhere, local people joined with the rebels and rose up against British. This is the first indication that Indian freedom movement was a mass-based movement. Penny peasants uprisings and revolts occurred till the independence in 1947. Establishment of Indian National Congress and its political movement, Home Rule League and its support by people, Gandhi's satyagrahas and civil disobedience movement encompassed almost all sections of the society. Muslim League also enjoyed a mass support of Muslims which acted to overthrow British. People of all religion, status and creed joined against the British rule. In 1857, it was predominantly a revolt against foreign rule to establish local rulers. Peasant uprisings went to overthrow insensitive rulers. INC movement was to gain political advantage and establish a political order, initially dominion status and later complete independence. Gandhi's movement also underwent ideological changes ranging from support to British rule with the demand of more freedom and political right to complete independence. The independence movement passed through small uprisings, organized political struggle under Congress, mass movement under Congress, Gandhi's non-violent movement along with revolutionary struggle. Thus, the independence movement encompassed various sections of society and underwent different ideological phases. F. The issue of tourism in core areas of tiger reserve forest in the country is a subject matter of debate. Critically examine various aspects of this issue, keeping in view relevant recent judicial pronouncements. Answer. The Supreme Court lifted the ban on tourist activities in core areas of tiger reserve forest. After the ban, several states and other stakeholders urged the center to revisit the guidelines and sought the lifting of the ban. Accordingly, the center filed an application seeking modification of the order. Subsequently, the court asked the center to hold consultations with the states and others and come out with fresh guidelines. Accordingly, the NTCA formulated fresh guidelines. The comprehensive guidelines on strategy, tiger conservation and tourism in and around tiger reserves envisaged that 20% of the core reserve area should be permitted for tourism. Shifting the focus from wildlife tourism to ecotourism, the NTCA had recommended that a maximum of 20% of the core or critical tiger habitat usage, not exceeding the present usage for regulated, low impact tourist visitation might be permitted by the court. It said, in case the current usage exceeds 20%, the local area committee may decide on a time frame for bringing down the usage to 20%. Such area may be demarcated as tourism zone and there should be strict adherence to site-specific carrying capacity. Some suggestions in this regard are: the state should enact a law to regulate tiger tourism, tourist facilities. Tour operators should not cause disturbance to animals. Tourism infrastructure must be environment friendly, like usage of solar energy, waste recycling and rainwater harvesting, etc. Permanent tourist facilities located inside the core area should be phased out in a time frame, and 10% of the revenue generated from pilgrim centers located in tiger reserves must be used for development of local communities. Question 2. Answer any 7 of the following in about 150 words each. 15 into 7, 105. A. There is an urgent need for the Planning Commission to revise the chapter on health in the 12th plan document. Comment. Answer. The 12th plan document recommends in its chapter on health increase in public expenditure on health from the present 1% to 1.58% of GDP, in sharp contrast to the high-level expert group recommendation of raising this expenditure to at least 2.5% of the GDP. This will ensure that India remains among the bottom 10 nations in terms of public spending on health. Health activists feel the focus of the document has shifted to a management care approach, paving the way for greater private role in public health care. It is feared that this would lead to the government abandoning its role in providing health care and becoming just a manager of a largely corporatist system. This would also decisively halt and eventually reverse the moderate achievements of the National Rural Health Mission in expanding public health infrastructure and services in the parts of the country. Union Health Minister Ghulam Nabi Azad has written a letter to the Planning Commission and added that the minister was personally looking into the matter. The minister's letter hits out at the plan panel's suggested pilot models that heavily promote corporatization of health and reiterates that the ministry's stance of developing a strong public health system be supplemented by private sector participation, not vice versa. B. The Union Cabinet recently cleared the proposal to rename and amend the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986. What are the salient features of the proposed amendments? Answer. The amendments included renaming of Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act as Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition Act, and provided that there will be no bar on children helping their families after school hours and in vacations in fields, home-based work, except commercial purpose. The proposal is also for prohibiting employment of persons below 18 years instead of present age 14 years in hazardous occupations and processes in line with an International Labour Organization convention. Their conditions of work are regulated in non-hazardous occupations and processes under the Act. The amendments would ensure that all children would be compulsorily admitted in schools as per Right to Education Act 2009 instead of working in workplaces. Parents and guardians of children would be punishable under this Act only when they permit engagement of their children for commercial purposes in contravention to this Act. The punishment to the offender under the Act would be stricter and the offences would be cognizable. The maximum punishment under the Act has been increased from 1 year of imprisonment to 2 years and fine from to 20,000 rupees to 50,000 or both. For repeated offences, it has been raised to 3 years of imprisonment. The overall responsibility for implementation of the Act will be vested with the district magistrate or deputy commissioner, and monitoring and inspection will be done by the Labour Department. C. Domestic resource mobilization, though central to the process of Indian economic growth, is characterized by several constraints. Explain. Answer. Domestic resource mobilization (DRM) refers to the savings and investments generated by households, domestic firms and governments. A greater emphasis on DRM can help developing countries to enhance their growth and economic performance, contribute toward increasing their policy space and ownership of development strategies, and reduce aid dependence. Although ultimately the private sector plays the more significant role in the process of mobilizing and investing domestic resources, the key policy and institutional drivers are in the hands of governments, particularly in low-income countries. Constraints. What national strategies are currently in place with regards to DRM? What are the main reasons behind lack of implementation? What is or should be the role of the state and its development partners in financial market infrastructure development? What role could private sector participants, in particular foreign banks and non-banking financial institutions, play in financial sector infrastructure development? Given the constraints of financial markets, what are the kinds of investment instruments that would be relevant both in terms of mobilizing and pooling savings and risk diversification? What is the realistic potential of alternatives and innovations such as microcredit in consolidating the otherwise highly fragmented financial markets in the region? Are the structural limits to what can be achieved? Example, market density, income levels, financial education levels, urbanization levels, real returns and risk perceptions. How can these be overcome? D. The flute playing Krishna theme is very popular in Indian art. Discuss. Answer. In Indian art, Krishna is often described and portrayed as an infant or young boy playing a flute as in the Bhagavata Purana, or as a youthful prince giving direction and guidance as in the Bhagavad Gita. Common depictions show him as a little boy or as a young man in a characteristic relaxed pose playing the flute. In this form, he usually stands with one leg bent in front of the other and raises a flute to his lips, known as Tribangi Mudra, accompanied by cows, emphasizing his position as the divine herdsman Govinda, or with the gopis, milkmaids, that is Gopi Krishna, stealing butter from neighboring houses, that is Navanita Chora or Gokula Krishna, defeating the vicious serpent, that is Kaliya Damana Krishna, lifting the hill, that is Giridhara Krishna, so on and so forth from his childhood or youth events. Krishna is also called Murlidhar. The flute of Krishna means the flute of revelation and not the physical flute. Krishna lived like a human and he was a prophet. Depiction of Krishna playing flute is in the temple constructed in AD 752 on the order of Emperor Shomu. Todaji Temple. Great Buddha Hall in Nara, Japan is also noteworthy. E. What are the salient features of Consumer Protection Amendment Bill 2011 introduced in the Lok Sabha in December 2011? Important points for answer. Consumer Protection Amendment Bill, various key features. Answer. The Consumer Protection Amendment Bill 2011 was introduced in the Lok Sabha on December 16, 2011 by Mr. K.V. Thomas. It has been referred to the Standing Committee on Food, Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution. The bill defines unfair contract to include a contract which has one or more of the following clauses. A. Excessive security deposit. B. Imposition of disproportionate penalty. C. Refusal to accept early repayment of debt. And D. Termination of contract without reasonable cause. Under the bill, unfair trade practice includes 1. A failure to take back the goods or withdraw the services within a period of 30 days after the receipt of the goods by the consumer, and 2. Disclosure of confidential personal information. Under the Act, a maximum of 2 members are to be appointed to district forum. The bill proposes that a minimum of 2 members should be appointed and the maximum number of members should be prescribed by the state government. Under the Act, the state government appoints the members of the district forum on the recommendation of the selection committee. The bill proposes that the state government may refer back to the recommendation to the selection committee if, in its opinion, the nominee is not fit to be appointed. The bill permits online filing of complaints. Under the Act, the admissibility of a complaint has to be decided within 21 days from date on which the complaint was received. The bill proposes to increase it to 28 days. F. What do you understand by the term multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, MDR-TB? What measures would you advocate for its containment, and what are the implications of its spread in the community? Important points for answer. Definition of MDR-TB, measures adopted for its containment. Answer. Multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, MDR-TB, is defined as tuberculosis that is resistant to at least isoniazid, INH, and rifampicin, RMP, the two most powerful first-line treatment anti-TB drugs. Isolates that are multiply resistant to any other combination of anti-TB drugs but not to INH and RMP are not classed as MDR-TB. MDR-TB develops during treatment of fully sensitive TB when the course of antibiotics is interrupted and the levels of drug in the body are insufficient to kill 100% of bacteria. In addition to the obvious risks, that is known exposure to a patient with MDR-TB. Risk factors for MDR-TB include HIV infection, previous incarceration, failed TB treatment, failure to respond to standard TB treatment, and relapse following standard TB treatment. Patients with MDR-TB should be isolated in negative pressure rooms if possible. Patients with MDR-TB should not be accommodated on the same ward as immune-suppressed patients, HIV-infected patients, or patients on immunosuppressive drugs. Careful monitoring of compliance with treatment is crucial to the management of MDR-TB, and some physicians insist on hospitalization if only for this reason. G. Given the accelerated pace of development and demand for energy, would you consider renewable energy as a visible option for India's future? Answer. The energy policy of India is largely defined by the country's burgeoning energy deficit and increased focus on developing alternative sources of energy, particularly nuclear, solar, and wind energy. About 70% of India's energy generation capacity is from fossil fuels, with coal accounting for 40% of India's total energy consumption, followed by crude oil and natural gas at 24% and 6% respectively. Due to rapid economic expansion, India has one of the world's fastest growing energy markets and is expected to be the second largest contributor to the increase in global energy demand by 2035, accounting for 18% of the rise in global energy consumption. Given India's growing energy demands and limited domestic fossil fuel reserves, the country has ambitious plans to expand its renewable and nuclear power industries. India has the world's fifth largest wind power market and plans to add about 20 gigawatt of solar power capacity by 2022. India also envisages to increase the contribution of nuclear power to overall electricity generation capacity from 4.2% to 9% within 25 years. The country has 5 nuclear reactors under construction, third highest in the world, and plans to construct 18 additional nuclear reactors, second highest in the world by 2025. Given the situation, it is recommended that renewable energy should supplement other sources of energy to maintain pace of development and fulfill the demand for energy. H. Many food items contain trans fats. What do you understand by this term? Which Indian food items contains trans fats? What are the implications of trans fats on human health? Answer. Trans fat is the common name for unsaturated fat with trans isomer, E-isomer fatty acids. Because the term refers to the configuration of a double carbon-carbon bond Trans fats are sometimes monosaturated or polyunsaturated but never saturated. Trans fats do exist in nature but also occur during the processing of polyunsaturated fatty acids in food production. Trans fats do exist in nature but also occur during the processing of polyunsaturated fatty acids in food production. The consumption of trans fats increases the risk of coronary disease by raising levels of LDL cholesterol and lowering levels of good HDL cholesterol. A type of trans fat occurs naturally in the milk and body fat of ruminants, such as cattle and sheep, at a level of 2 to 5% of total fat. Natural trans fats, which include conjugated linoleic acid (CLA) and vaccinic acid, originate in the rumen of these animals. CLA has two double bonds, one in the configuration and one in trans, which makes it simultaneously a cis and a trans fatty acid. Animal-based fats were once the only trans fat consumed, but by far the largest amount of trans fat consumed today is created by the processed food industry as a side effect of partially hydrogenating unsaturated plants fat, generally vegetable oils. Question 3. Answer the following in about 50 words each. 5 into 11, 55. A. What is the Parivarik Mahila Lok Adalat? Answer. The National Commission for Women has evolved an innovative concept of PMLA for redressal and speedy disposal of cases under Legal Service Authority Act 1987, which has its roots in the traditional Nyaya Panchayats. The essential features of PMLA are amicable mutual settlement and flexibility in functioning. The NGOs, in association with the district legal aid and advisory board activists, advocates and others, organize Parivarik Mahila Lok Adalats with the Commission's financial assistance. B. List the main objectives of the National Manufacturing Policy NMP 2011. Answer. The major objectives of the National Manufacturing Policy 2011 are to increase the sectoral share of manufacturing in GOP to at least 25% by 2022, to increase the rate of job creation so as to create 100 million additional jobs by 2022, and to enhance global competitiveness, domestic value addition, technological depth and environmental sustainability of growth. C. Comment on the significance of Rasamava in studying the history of Indian chemistry. Answer. Rasamava was written in Sanskrit in the period of 12th century AD by an unknown author. It is a treatise on metallic preparations and describes tantric, mesial and chemical practice of the time. It deals with rasas, that is mercury and other important minerals, uparasas and metals. D. What are the rights within the ambit of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution? Answer. Article 21 provides for protection of life and personal liberty. It says, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. The Supreme Court has by various judgments included right to pollution-free environment, right to shelter, right to food, right to locomotion and travel abroad, right to speedy and fair trial, etc. under the ambit of Article 21. E. Comment on the significance of the preamble contained in the Right to Information Act. Answer. As per preamble to RTI Act, it is to provide for setting out the practical regime of right to information for citizens to secure access to information under the control of public authorities in order to promote transparency and accountability in the working of every public authority, the constitution of a Central Information Commission and State Information Commissions and other matters connected with them. F. To implement one key recommendation of the Mohini Giri Committee, the government has recently announced the constitution of a National Council. Highlight the composition and the mandate of this National Council. Answer. Composition of the National Council. Chairman. Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment. Minister of State, Social Justice and Empowerment. Oldest members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Representatives of 5 state governments plus 1 union territory by rotation. 5 representatives each from Senior Citizens Associations, Pensioners Association, NGOs working for senior citizen and experts. Mandate of the National Council. This council will advise the central and state governments on issues related to 1. Policies, programs and legislative measures for the welfare of senior citizens. 2. Promotion of physical and financial security, health and independent and productive living. 3. Awareness generation and community mobilization. G. Comment on the recent launching of the National Mission on Libraries, NML. Answer. The National Knowledge Commission, NKC, in its report to the nation 2006 to 2009 made 10 major recommendations on libraries. In pursuance of this, a high-level committee to be called as National Mission on Libraries, NML, has been set up by the Government of India. Raja Rammohan Rai Library Foundation, RRRLF, an autonomous body under the Ministry of Culture, will be the nodal agency for the National Mission on Libraries for administrative, logistics, planning and budgeting purposes. H. What are the groups into which musical instruments in India have traditionally been classified? Answer. Indian musical instruments can be broadly classified into 4 categories. Cardiophobot, string instruments. Plucked bowed. Aerophones, flutes, double reed, free reed, brass, single reed, bagpipes, free reed and bellow, other wind instruments. Percussion instruments. Membranophones, hand drums, stick and hand drums, hand frame drums, stick drums. Ideophones, melodic. I. Comment on the significance of fire in Zoroastrianism. Answer. Fire is a symbol of Ahura Mazda. The Aryans who originated in the area near Persia used fire in their ritual activities. For them, fire, ignite, was a god. The most important sacred places for Zoroastrians are the 5 temples where priests chant prayers, hymns and blessings around the clock. J. Why is Laurie Baker, Laurie, Laurie Baker, called the conscience keeper of Indian architecture? Answer. Laurie Baker is known for building affordable, elegant and energy efficient homes in Kerala. People call his designs Baker model houses. Received Padam Shri for his works. In Thiruvananthapuram, he designed and built Center for Development Studies, CDS, which continues to be a pilgrim center for budding architects from across the country. K. You are stationed in a small district town in the plains of northern India. The summer has been severe. Suddenly, a colleague who had been out since morning returns to the office complaining of headache, restlessness and confusion. Shortly, he becomes unconscious. His body temperature is 40 degrees centigrade. What first aid steps would you take to revive him? Answer. These are the symptoms of heat stroke. Hence, the treatment should be: move the victim to a cooler environment immediately. Cover him with a towel or blanket soaked with water to cool the victim's body. Loosen clothing and ensure that the person gets plenty of ventilation. When he gains consciousness, immediately give him water containing salt or lemon juice. Question 4. Comment on each of the following in about 20 words each. 2 into 5, 10. A. The significance of Patrugat in Indian freedom struggle. Answer. Patrugat is a place in Assam known as Assam's Jallianwala Bagh, famous for 1894 Patrugat Run, where on January 28, 1894, some 140 persons were killed in an unprovoked police firing while protesting against enhanced revenue. B. Bagurumba folk dance. Answer. Bagurumba, also called butterfly dance, is a folk dance of Assam performed by the Bodos during Bisagu A festival of Bodas in the Bishubha Sankranti are mid-April. C. Determining the value assigned to the vote of a member of a state legislative assembly and of a member of parliament in the Indian presidential elections. Answer. Article 55 clause 2 subclause A says every elected member of the legislative assembly of a state shall have as many votes as there are multiples of 1000 in the quotient obtained by dividing the population of the state by the total number of the elected members of the assembly. D. Significance of the SPOT, S-P-O-T, Spot 6 rocket launch for ISRO. Answer. The 100th Indian space mission of ISRO has launched a PSLV carrying the French Spot 6 Earth observation satellite with a mass of 712 kilograms. E. Issues highlighted through the work of Palagumi Sainath. Answer. Palagumi Sainath, a rural reporter, is an Indian journalist and photojournalist focusing on social problems, rural affairs, poverty, and aftermaths of globalization in India. He is the rural affairs editor for The Hindu. Question 5. Why have the following been in the news recently? Answer to be in one sentence only. 1 into 5. 5. A. P.V. Sindhu. Answer. P.V. Sindhu, the 17-year-old Indian female badminton player who beat London Olympics gold medalist Lee Zhuerui XUERUI in the quarterfinals of the China Masters, achieved the 20th place in the BWF ranking. B. Aditya Kumar Mandi. Answer. Aditya Kumar Mandi, who is a constable in CISF, won the Sahitya Academy Prize for his poetry in Santali language. C. Cyrus Mistry. Answer. Cyrus Mistry, a leading businessman, is going to take over as chairman of Tata Group from Ratan Tata from December 2012. D. Ashok Sen. Answer. Ashok Sen is an Indian theoretical physicist who won the Fundamental Physics Prize 2012 for his work on string theory. E. Mario de Miranda. Answer. Mario Miranda was an Indian cartoonist of Goa who died in 2011 and was awarded a posthumous Padma Vibhushan in 2012. File 23 complete.